The strategic Bitcoin reserve is here, and the question of the day is, why are my corns, sir, why are my corns not going up? And as we went over in yesterday's video, these sort of events are historically almost always, in fact, I can't even remember a time when this was not true, a sell the news type of event. Now, I want to be very, very clear. Long term, obviously an SPR or a strategic reserve for Bitcoin in the US is a massively positive thing, obviously, but this can take time to play out, I suspect. And in the short term, Bitcoin can do all sorts of nonsense. So I want to reiterate that as long as Bitcoin is below Sunday's high, the same shit I've been saying this whole week, as long as Bitcoin is below Sunday's high, I do lean towards the higher probability of short-term downside, or at least coming back down to the bottom side of the range. I mean, we already kind of have seen a couple of those moves thus far, but until that condition is met, I would still be leaning towards short-term downside, especially with another event coming in today, that being the crypto summit, which, I think that there's a lot of high expectations for, but barring any sort of major announcement of something that no one's even aware of right now, like literally no one should know. I would be expecting the same. I'm always gonna lean towards a sell the news type of response when you get an event like this, because like I said, show me an example where that just wasn't true. Some people posted some examples yesterday, but they didn't really correlate, to be honest. After checking into them. So, I'm certainly open to being wrong on that, but just as a probabilistic statement, Bitcoin more likely to go down than up, again, as long as Bitcoin is below Sunday's high. Now, moving on from there, I should go over our higher term timeframe stochastic momentum pivots, because that would also kind of, make the downside even more likely in the short term here. One, the daily will actually freshly turn down, rejecting getting above even the neutral zone if Bitcoin closes today below 89,900, Bitcoin trading like 700-ish bucks below that as of right now. On top of that, the 3-day time frame, which I believe is, yes, it is also closing today as well, will also continue down as long as Bitcoin's below 90,000 bucks. And then of course, the 5-day, which just closed last night, has opened up. It actually has the same momentum pivot as the last period at 90,550, but obviously not closing today, closing in about 3 to 4 days from now. So, 4 days from now. So fair enough. And then of course, weekly already down below 102, double weekly or bi-weekly also down as long as Bitcoin's below 99,250. Again, that one's actually not closing this week, and then of course the monthly is also going to be positioned to the downside as of right now. So, I do still have to maintain a short-term downside bias, but I do want to also provide a bit of hopium as well here, just because not necessarily because it is, it's nice to have some hopium, but because if you are bullish for the long term on Bitcoin, I want to continue to say this. I don't think that the low is that far off in terms of price. Maybe in terms of time, it might be, a completely different statement there. But in terms of price, does Bitcoin come back down and make a slightly new low? Does it just retest a low? Does it, make a slightly higher low? These sort of things I don't have strong opinions on, but my strong opinion is that if you are bullish for the long term, you really don't expect to see Bitcoin much below 70,000 bucks in the short term future here. If Bitcoin does come below there, I look at that as a signal that, especially below November's low, by the way, I look at that as a signal that the market actually is turning around. But until that happens, I still want to go with the overall trend. But certainly there are concerning features in the background here. Anyways, let's go over a little bit of hopium here first. One, I want to follow up on the daily signal that we looked at on yesterday's video for meta signals. By the way, you can get these signals for free in their Discord. You just need to join the link in the description below. They also, of course, have their paid service as well, where you get a shit ton more stuff. But in this case, we've already seen target number one hit from yesterday's video, opening at 87,250, closing, or target number one at 91,500. Again, that has a very high probability, around about 70%. Target number two, which has about a 50% probability, is at 95,620. So, if that does get hit, then that would obviously be back above Sunday's high. If Bitcoin can just close back above there, I mean, that's the time where it starts to say, hey, hello. I think it's bullish. I think it's bullish like right now, actually. Until then, I'm still looking a little bit lower. And waiting for a few very specific signals before initiating any sort of long-term long buys. Now, moving on from there, there's actually another signal over here that has fired off. It's a lower term time frame, the 2-hour time frame. This one firing off at 88,173. So actually just below where price action is right now. And this one also showing a little bit of hopium here in the short term. Target number 1, 89,209. I don't think that we've hit that one just yet. Let me just double check for today's price action. Let's see. No, yeah, it has not been hit. Okay, so fair enough. Again, that has close to a 70% probability to be hit. Target number 2, around 50% probability, is above 90,000, and target number 3 is 92,500 bucks. Very low probability on target number 3, but that would basically be very close on a closing basis to the current Sunday high, or sorry, maybe not Sunday high, but yesterday's high. Yeah, yesterday's high. So, you do see that Bitcoin is very obviously consolidating on the lows here. You have a low, you have a lower low, you have a lower high, you have a higher low, you have a lower high. Is this going to formulate into a higher low here? Again, I do think it's less likely right now. So if I have to bet any direction at this exact moment, I would have to bet to the downside. Again, with an event looming overhead tonight, just that is the higher probability move here, obviously. But like I said, I don't think Bitcoin has that much further down to go if it is going to be indeed bullish. And I'll explain why with a couple of charts here, a couple of ones that I haven't shown just yet. And of course, all of the ones that we've covered throughout this past week are still relevant and viable as well. But this is the 5-day time frame for Bitcoin spot. And the HPDRO indicator here, which represents directional volatility, is hitting and turning away from some pretty extreme levels that we don't see all that often, especially in bull markets. Basically anything below -50 is what is Elsa doing over there? She's making noises. Don't fucking like it. Anyway, she'll pay for that later. Anyways, any sort of moves down into this region and then the subsequent reversal of down to up in terms of slope for this indicator have correlated with, I'll just show you on the chart, all of the major lows throughout this current cycle and actually past cycles as well. You see this one over here from September 2020, but, just zero in on these. Since the bull market started, every single time we've seen somewhere around this region and then a turn up, that has been the low or very, very close to the low. In this instance right here, it wasn't the exact low, but again, in terms of price, very fucking close, even fired off another signal soon after that. And you see several instances here, obviously, especially throughout the 2024 mega consolidation. But ultimately, the low was either in or very close to being in terms of price. You can see this one fired off 3 times here, all of them producing some pretty epic rallies, despite being a major consolidation. So looking at it right here, what is my interpretation of this? Well, if you are still looking at Bitcoin as in a bull market, then you have to be looking at reads down here on the HPDRO as, at least major local lows or very, very close to major local lows, especially now that it already has confirmed a turn to the upside with last night's 5-day closure. So I do look at that as significant. And of course, if Bitcoin again can trade back above that Sunday high, that would make things easy for me. But until then, I really fucking hate events like this. I really do because it almost always, in fact, like I said, I really can't think of an example where this hasn't been true, has been a sell the news type of thing. So fair enough. Anyways, also on that note, if we are essentially in still a bull market, I would be looking at this as well. Actually, let me get rid of everything here because it's just going to be a little bit too convoluted, but I would be looking at this yellow moving average on the biweekly time frame. This is the 21 exponential moving average, again, for the 2-week time frame. And you can see throughout Bitcoin's bull markets, Bitcoin likes to ride above that. It doesn't like to go below. And whenever it goes below, that's usually a signal that the end is nigh. and And you can see that, all cycles has pretty much been true. Any test down around there has typically been, the low. And again, closures below there, that's where things start to get a little bit more shaky, especially when you get two consecutive ones. But in this case, we can see that Bitcoin has found an initial bounce off of that region. Yes, it can go a little bit lower. So that is, again, why I do suggest that if you are bullish on Bitcoin, I wouldn't be expecting like significantly lower from where it's currently at. Just the time component of that is the major question mark. But if we really start to see it deviate a lot from that from this yellow moving average here, again, that would be a signal to me that, hey, the cycle really is over and it's time to let go of all the hopium and prepare for much more downside targets. But until that happens, I'm just going to go with the former trend until proven otherwise. Again, there are major issues on the higher term timeframes, but I guess I can take some time to play out, of course. Anyways, this is all second to the main thing that I'm looking for to be a lot more interested in actual long-term long buy for Bitcoin, or just looking at it, as more safe. Again, waiting for this. I will naturally miss the ultimate low for Bitcoin. That's okay. I don't care about buying the ultimate low. I care about buying high probability reversals into trend. And for me, that's completely fine. Again, you don't need to be perfect and buy the ultimate low and sell the ultimate top to make a shit ton of money in this game. You just need, even like fucking 60-70% of a move is more than enough in this game. But I did want to denote that the hash ribbons indicator is actually now given a projected buy signal yet again. It is projecting in about 15 days. We're seeing it start to finally turn down after being straight up for, the last couple weeks. And I also want to remind myself that from these capitulation signals here to the buy signals, those on average take around about 40-ish days. 40 days would put us at mid-March. And, if this is projecting the buy signal at 15 more days, that wouldn't be too far off. That would actually be close to about 50 days. So, it would be a lot closer to the data set here. So the hash ribbons indicator, again, it's not there just yet. I'm going to naturally lean towards more downside, although at some point it certainly will be wrong until we get that buy signal for this indicator right here. But we are starting to see kind of a light at the end of the tunnel yet again. Hopefully, hopefully Bitcoin doesn't dump off too much in between there. But yeah, 15 days. It's just over 2 weeks. Again, for a projected signal, it might be a little bit less than that, might be a little bit more than that. This is just based off of the current price as it stands right now. So again, that can be massively variable. But there is a light at the end of the tunnel here, and once I see that, that's when I'm going to be a little bit more loud about what I'm doing, I suppose. But until then, I think it's going to be a lot of waiting. We obviously are going to be waiting for this event later tonight. For me, I don't like having positions into these things. And like I said, I have to lean towards the downside simply because, almost always these events are sell the news. But hey, let's say Bitcoin, in the event Bitcoin pops back up, during today's event, because Trump announces that Bitcoin is now going to be considered legal tender in the US, something like this. And it pops back up and closes above that Sunday high, I'm going to lean to the downside. That's just one of my personal rules. Take it or leave it. You don't have to do the same thing. It's completely fine. Obviously you shouldn't probably even be doing the same thing, as we all have different, preferences in trading and investing anyways. But hopefully this was in some way helpful. As always, when I wish you the best of best. If you found this content valuable, consider liking, consider subscribing. It gets these videos into your inbox, which I try to update each and every day. And of course, my opinion changes all the time based upon new price action. So with that said, see you next time.